Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. When you have an experience where you, for a particular period in a year, you do the same thing, or you see the same people, and you only see them at that time, it almost affords you an experience which is like a speeded up movie. You know, if you think of a day as a frame, then a year would have 365 frames in it of old form. Now imagine if you took out 364 of those 365 frames, and you only had one frame. But the frame is in the same context with the same people. What you then experience is a really, and it's an unsettling speeding up of time. So the first time I became aware of this experience was for 5 years. I was at the same period in time, I think it was around mid-March, I did a piece of work in Cambridge in the UK. It's the only time I've ever really been to Cambridge. It's the only time I've ever done anything in Cambridge. So it was there specifically for that purpose. So it was like very specifically framed. At the same time, every year. And then basically, and then I went there for 5 years. So those 5 years I had like a speeded up movie, because I could actually see how this place had changed from when I first went, incrementally, to where I'm there. And one of the first things that was obvious, that wouldn't have been obvious to somebody who was there full time, was how the demographics of the university had changed. You know, the first time I went, there were a lot more Caucasian, sort of English-looking people. And over a period of time, it became increasingly Asian, demonstrably, visually. So the reason why I want to talk about this is because today I went and had lunch with a very old friend of mine, Freddie Domingo. This man's quite a bit older than me. I think he's 12 years older than me. And it's a standard fixture. I have lunch with him every Eid, particularly every Eid al-Fitr. So I see him once a year in that day. We basically sit at the same place at the table. So I see over the last decade or so, I've now seen a speeded up movie of this man. And the lesson in the speeded up movie is frailty. You know, he was an athletic man right until his late 50s, to play soccer. But every time I see him, he's a little bit more broken, a little bit more incapable. Now the poor man's had cancer issues, and even the conversation is a lot more around friends of ours who have now passed away, and so it's a different. You know, you can from the robustness, there's frailty, and I feel it in myself. I mean, in a sense, that's why it's such an interesting experience watching this. You know, my brother recently having passed away, seeing this man having the same issue that my brother had, and just I feel these things in myself. I feel myself becoming more frail. Isn't it true that over time the truth of the matter becomes manifest? The truth is revealed. Okay? And what is the fundamental outcome of time for us is frailty, which means our truth is frailty. It is not robustness. It's not this thing of I'm in charge, and I'm capable, and I'm this, and I'm that. That's an illusion. That is not the truth. We have not here, we don't achieve the best in ourselves while we think we're in charge, while we think that we are in command of the matter. That's not when the best of us happens. That's when actually the most distasteful is. The best in us starts to happen once we start having these real first-hand experiences of our incapacity, our incompleteness, and our frailty. That's what it means to be humble. Being humble isn't to congratulate yourself that you don't, that you make yourself smaller than other people. Being humble means that you recognize that you are not self-sufficient and that you're not in charge. That you are vulnerable. And that you live at the mercy of, in the first instance, the Rabb, and then the slave, his slaves. Whatever serves him, which is everything which is facing you in the situation that you're in. We had this conversation with Siri Batandwa earlier on this afternoon, and it occurred to me to tell him again that story that I've repeated several times here of Imam Khafiling, the late Imam of the Bosman Mosque. And there are many things that can be spoken about this man. He was really the most fascinating character. But one of the things that was intriguing about him is that he was, at the time, I believe he was the only Muslim cleric who was willing to serve as a chaplain on death row when in the decade of apartheid, when they were still executing people. He was the only person who was willing to do that. And so he accompanied something like 200 people on that last period. And it started then, once he got the name of the person, he started visiting the person, counseling the person. He went through this whole process with the person. On the day of the execution, he was there very early in the morning. He sat with the person, he walked with the person. The last walk, he accompanied the person to the scaffold, stood next to them at the scaffold, watched them fall through the hole, took them off the rope, did the ghusl, and buried the person. This Imam Khafiri. That's what he did. And the interesting thing he said to me about all of these people, all of these executions that he watched, he said, it doesn't matter how bad the man was. And he said, some of them were like really bad, like not nice people. There was one guy who was executed for having murdered his cellmate and eaten his liver. It was like really bad. Yeah. He said, in that last day, and as they got closer and closer to that trapdoor, they completely changed. They became meek as lambs, humble, grateful to the people who are about to kill them. When you know who you are, and there's nothing that tells you more who you are than that hole waiting for you there, then suddenly all the bravado is gone. You no longer have issues. You're no longer in charge. That's when the best of you comes out. So the question is then, what do we do with our capacity when we have it? Because sometimes we do. If you see me get up and I'm lightheaded and I'm stumbling, then as you should, as a young man, you should help me. You mustn't let me fall. That's not right.
No.
Am I right? You must help me. Just give me your shoulder. So when you have capacity, that doesn't mean to say you have capacity for yourself. You see? You have capacity to make it easier for those who don't have capacity. Because you are the same as them, it's just the flower hasn't quite gotten there yet. Mm-hmm. It's a moving target. Mm. On this path, if there's anything that should be developing in you, it is a compassion for the frailty of others. However you frame that frailty, whether it's a physical frailty, whether it's a moral frailty, whether it's an emotional frailty or an intellectual, however you frame the frailty, the not being good enough, not quite capable, that is who we are. This is not a company of those who are capable. We are all broken. We're a band of brothers and sisters who know we're frail. And who in our frailty, we recognize the frailty of others. So our compassion is real. What does the word compassion mean? With passion, feeling with. How can you feel with if you don't know the feeling? Huh? How can a person who's capable have compassion? If you haven't known frailty, how can you feel for the frailty of somebody else? So insofar as we're capable, while we're capable, understand that capability has been a short-term loan. And it's not for you. It's for anybody other than you. Use it for anybody other than you. Because once that loan is expended, it's expended. And maybe, inshallah, if you've used your loan wisely and to the benefit of others, maybe the others will take care of you. Why should Allah send you help when you do become frail, which you will do, if you've not shown any of that kindness to others? I think of our friends who keep on wanting to establish this Imarat. You know, we're in charge. We are commanding here. This governance is, it is so naive. It is so naive. I mean, you aren't even in charge of your life, no matter how clever you think you are, no matter how good you think you are. Now you want to govern a city. Now you want to govern the lives of the Ummah. You can't. Your own life is a shambles. Will be a shambles, because that's the nature of our lives. It is not without reason that we are referred to as fuqara, the destitute. No matter who you are hierarchically in the world, if you're on this path, you will know that all of that you have there, all that your capability is facade. It is shadow show. It is puppetry. It's mask. The reality is that you're fakir. You are destitute. You are frail. You are broken. That's the reality. That's the reality of being human. May Allah grant us nearness to Him. May grant us annihilation in Him. May grant us death before we die. Inna Allah wa malaikatahu yusallu ala nabi. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu sallu alayhi wa sallimu taslima. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammadin abdika wa rasulika nabiyyin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallim taslima. سبحان ربك رب العزة وما يصفون والسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين.